It's your open source advocate, and I'm back with another video. And today I wanted to kind of do a follow-up on Docker and security. So my last video about Docker and firewalls really stirred up a lot of great conversation, and some people gave me some more great tips, and some things just don't click with me until they click with me. And I don't know if you know what I mean by that, but as I was going through college and graduate school, sometimes I just would not get a concept initially, but once I got it, I really got it. And it's kind of the same thing with Docker. I've been doing this the whole time with my mindset that this is the way to do it. And even though the whole time, I know some of you are out there, have been telling me this is a different way. You could do this a different way. You could do this a more secure way. It just was not clicking with me what you were saying until now. And I don't know why. So one, I want to say thank you so much for sticking with me and for just consistently telling me, hey, there's a better way, and for sticking with me while I did it the other way for so long. And I'm not saying the way that I've been doing it is wrong. I'm just saying that there's another way to do this, and I want to go through it with you guys today. And I think this way, especially on a VPS, is a more secure way. And there's a couple of different aspects to what we're going to talk about when you're talking about Docker and reverse proxies and setting things up. So I have several different Docker setups, okay? So you can see here I've got my local, that's the machine that is the actual Docker, the Portainer install. I've got my Ubuntu server VM that runs a bunch of my services here in my home. I've got my iMac that we're going to actually be using today. So that was the one that I was just showing you that only had a couple of containers. And then I've got my one that's out there on the OSIA site, the Open Source is Awesome site that runs a bunch of stuff as well. So these all run Portainer agent, but it gives me one interface where I can go and jump into any of them and do something really great. So Portainer is a super amazing tool. If you guys haven't checked out my Portainer videos, I highly recommend you go check them out. Portainer is a really great company. They make this open source. They make it where you can run it yourself, but they also have some really great stuff that you can pay for and get. And it supports the open source development, which is amazing. That's the one thing I love about companies that open source their software. Sure, they have a model to make money. That totally makes sense. They're a business and they're a company. But they use that money to give back, and they try to provide something like this, which is an amazing tool that we can use for free and open source and self-hosted, which is awesome. So I can't say enough good things about Portainer and what it can offer you and what it can do. And I haven't even scratched the surface of what you can really do with Portainer. So just understand that it can do so much more than what I do with it even. And it's really a great tool for the little bit that I do with it as well. I want to say thank you to all of my patrons over at Patreon and my subscribers on YouTube. Thank you so much for all of your support. I love doing this channel. I love making this media and this content for you. I hope you enjoy it as well. I do post all of the videos now over at Patreon after one of my patrons made the suggestion, and I don't know why it didn't dawn on me before that. But if you're interested in seeing them through Patreon and getting notifications through Patreon instead of through YouTube, or hoping that YouTube's algorithms happens to show it to you, jump over and become a supporter on Patreon, patreon.com. I've got the links in the description and the show notes. I appreciate your support. Thank you so much. So I have Portainer set up, so we're going to jump over to iMac here on my iMac machine. And you can see here that I've only got a couple of containers running, and one is the Portainer agent, and the other one here is Heimdall that I'm just kind of doing some testing. So I'll be doing a video on Heimdall here in the future as well. It's another nice dashboard, kind of like I use Homer for. Heimdall is a very similar type thing, but it has user accounts so that different users can kind of have their own setup, which is pretty nice. That's one thing I feel like Homer's missing a little bit. This is a super nice shortcut dashboard, but I definitely think that it could use some user account settings as well. Okay, beyond that, so we're looking here at my setup for my iMac, and I've got a couple of terminals open. And what I'm going to do is going to sound a little crazy, but I've got Portainer open twice for a good reason. So here you can see I've got my NGinX Proxy Manager app running, and I'm going to go shut this one off because I want to set up NGinX Proxy Manager on this other machine. Now we're going to do this stuff through the CLI. You can definitely do this stuff through Portainer, but I like to show you guys the CLI in case you're not running Portainer for some reason. So I am going to go shut this off. I'm just going to click this box, and I'm going to click this box, and it's just going to shut down my NGinX Proxy Manager for a little bit. So I'm just going to hit the stop button. I'm not going to kill it. I'm just going to stop those containers from running, and then I'll come back and start them back up when I'm ready for everything to be running again. So you can see they're stopped down here. I'm going to jump back over to my iMac, and you can see that there's nothing there. So I've got the NGinX Proxy Manager site up. I'm just going to grab this Docker Compose file, and you can see that's really all that there is to it. So we're just going to grab that text right off their quick setup here on NGinXProxyManager.com. I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to open up a terminal and I'm going to just make this a little bit bigger, and we'll just clear it here. So I'm going to make this text a little bit larger for you guys, and I'm going to basically create a folder. So I'm just going to say mkdir NGinX PM. That's fine. I'm going to cd into that folder I just created. So this is just Docker organization basically. So I'm going to take this folder and I'm going to say I need to create a couple of things. I'm going to create a Docker compose file. So I'm just going to say nano, and this is just a text editor. You can use VI, you can use Vim, you can use whatever you want to use. But I'm going to use nano docker compose.yml. I'm going to paste in that text I just copied from back here on the web page, and you can use Control Shift and V like Victor, or you can right click and do paste. Completely up to you how you paste it in. It doesn't really matter how you do this. You can see here we've got a data volume that we need to have created, and inside of that is our MySQL stuff. So that's for the MySQL volume. We also have a data volume here for basically for the NGinX Proxy Manager itself. So it's the same folder, and then we have this Let's Encrypt folder that it creaets for etc/Let's Encrypt. So we're going to create those two folders real quick. But before we do that, so notice that there's several port mappings here for NGinX Proxy Manager on the web interface. So you've got 80, 81 is your admin interface, and 443 is your SSL interface. Out of these three, you can feel free to change the left side of this one. That's your web interface. That's how you access the web interface. You can change it to any port that your system's not using. But I would highly recommend not changing 80 or 443. You should leave these because this is how Let's Encrypt communicates with your proxy host to give you certificates for any of the sites that you're using NGinX Proxy Manager for. So I would say don't change these, just 81 if you want to, you can. You should never expose this one to the internet. This is your admin interface. You can use a proxy to actually proxy yourself around to it. So you have a nice SSL encrypted way to get to it and everything, and I've got videos on that out there. The next things we need to check here real quick are the MySQL user. You should change these things, so I'm going to change this to Brian. And the MySQL password, you should make this a long, strong, complex password, and you're gonna type it into this configuration file 2 times, basically here at the top, and then you're gonna type it in again down here where it says MySQL password. You're gonna type in the same password and the same user down here. These two you don't need to change. You don't need to change this one or this one. These are, or actually, you can change this one, make it something really long, complex, because you don't need to use it. So you can make it, anything you want. Oh, whoop, I gotta put my cursor in the right place here. So you can change this password to anything you want. So if you do, okay, that's going to be pretty hard for somebody to guess, I imagine. I don't need to know that password. I just need that to be my root password because it's secure. I can always come look at my config file to see what it is if I happen to need it for some reason. The database name is just going to stay npm. I'm going to change my user to Brian. So you need to create a nice, long, complex, strong password for your MySQL password, as well as, and you're going to put it in twice, here, and you're going to put it up here. So we'll kind of look at this real quick, and we're just going to do this. So I'm just going to make this, I'm going to destroy this after the video's over, so don't worry about if you get to see it. Okay. Once you make that password, you can just do this, and then you can do copy, and then you can move your cursor up and just do Control-Shift-V and you paste it in. Now they both match. Make sure your user matches, make sure the database name matches, everything like that. And you're really pretty much set. So we're just going to save this file with Control-O and Enter. And we're going to exit with Control-X. Now I need to create those 2 folders. So I'm going to do mkdir data, mkdir let's encrypt, spell it correctly. And if we do cat docker compose.yaml, we can just double check that I spelled them both the right way. And you can see right here, it's data and let's encrypt. So that's good. We're set. So we can clear this out, and now we can run our docker compose up. So we're just going to do docker-compose up-d. We're going to let it go out and grab NGinX Proxy Manager and the MariaDB database, and it's going to put those together, and then we'll have NGinX Proxy Manager ready to run on this system. Now, one thing I have to change on my network is that currently my network is forwarding 80 and 443 to the other machine where that was running, so I need to fix that real quick, so from the outside it'll forward that stuff. Alright, everything finished up here, so we're just going to jump over and see if we can reach this by IP address. And you see this takes me to my NGinX Proxy Manager page just by going there. Now if I want to go to the actual admin part, I do :81. And the first time out, we need to put in admin at example.com, and then CHANGEME is the password initially. I'm going to say don't save that. And here it wants me to change this, which I do want to do. So let me just go say BRIN at fixitdelrio.com. And then the password we're going to change. We're going to put in the current password. And then we'll make a strong password. And we'll save that. And we're done there. So you can see now that I've got the administrator account set up. And over here, if we go look at proxy hosts, there are no proxy hosts yet. But we don't really have anything we need a proxy to. We have Heimdall. But Heimdall is not set the way that I want it. So we're going to go redo the way that Heimdall is set up. So right here you can see Heimdall is set up. And you can see that I'm forwarding ports 8220 and 8443, 8220 to 80, and 8443 to 443. So if I look here, I've got Heimdall running, and I believe I installed Heimdall through Portainer using the app templates. So I'm just going to stop this, and I'm going to edit it here in just a second. So if I go into here to edit, we can go look at what our port forwardings are. Now, like I said, there's a couple of ways to do ports and port forwarding in here, but you see here that it has internal ports of 80 and 443, so I don't really need those, but what I do need is a special network. So if we look at the networks here just through Portainer, you can see that I've got the bridge network, the host network, and the none network. These are just system networks that get set up automatically with Docker. Here you can see I've got this NGinX Proxy Manager network that got created through the compose file. What I want to do actually though is create my own network, and I want to attach this one to it, and I want to attach anything else that I'm running to that network. So there's Docker commands to do this, and I'll kind of go through these with you guys, but we're going to do this in the command line here. I'm just going to clear this out, and I'll make this full screen again for you guys. So we're going to do Docker network create -d, and then I'm going to make this a bridge network. This is the type of network that lets the Docker containers reach out to the internet or be reached from the internet if we need to. So you don't need this for every single container out there, actually. You could use different kinds of networks to do this, but in this case, I think this is a good starting place. And then I'm going to call this OSIA, which is open source is awesome. And there we go. We've got a network created. So if we go back to Portainer now, you can see now that we've got OSIA as our bridge network here, and I want to attach this to it. Now again, you can do all of these things through Portainer, which is really nice. It's a nice clickable GUI, but we'll go do it through the CLI. So if we look real quick here at the Docker documentation, and we move down, you'll see that there's overlay options. That's if you have a lot of Docker instances and you want to do some things. You need to be running Docker in certain modes for this to work, but it's pretty nice that you could do this between different Docker instances and containers. But here we want to connect a container. So the first way is to run the container and tell it right off the bat to connect to your network, and that would be --network equals whatever your network name is. So here we have the Docker network connect command, and this is for a running container. So basically you say Docker network connect. You can have options, but you say the network name and then the container name. So that's what we're going to do. And we're going to say Docker network connect OSIA. And we're going to put it as NGinX app1 and Docker network connect OSIA NGinX proxy manager. Oh, if I type it correctly, Docker network connect OSIA, the network first, NGinX PMDB1. If I clear that out now, if we go check, everything should be running on the Docker network. So we'll go back into Portainer here and we'll look at our containers. And it's probably good to restart NGinX Proxy Manager, but let's just check and make sure that we can reach it still. Let's refresh it. Looks like everything's still functioning correctly, so that's good. If we go to our users here, if I click to edit my user, it's able to bring everything up. So that makes me think everything's working correctly just the way we want to, so that's good. So we'll go back in here. Now I have Heimdall set up. So because I did Heimdall through the Portainer setup, I'm going to change everything for Heimdall through this. So I'm going to click in. I'm going to do edit. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of these port mappings. And then I'm going to attach it to this OSIA network that we just set up. Now I'm going to redeploy this container. There we go. We have Heimdall running. Now I won't be able to reach Heimdall because one, it runs on port 80 inside of its container, but I didn't map any ports here. But what I want to do is I want to set up NGinX Proxy Manager to actually let me get to Heimdall. And I should be able to do that through the actual container name. So we're going to go into NGinX Proxy Manager. We're going to add a new proxy host. And I can use my routemehome.org, I believe. Let's just double check and make sure it's forwarding correctly. Let's do routemehome.org. It's not www, so I don't know why it's trying to take me to www. There we go. We got the congratulations page. Let's try port 81. My firewall should be blocking that. It is. Good. Alright, so we're going to go back through the IP address. There are no proxy hosts, so we're going to add one. And we're going to call this heim.routemehome.org. And I'm going to set this as Heimdall. It's on port 80. And WebSockets, block common exploits, cache assets, and save. Now, in theory, this should forward me to that container. And there it is. My container is up and running. I don't have any ports open or exposed to the internet. And I'm using the Docker networking. I know. 2 years were going on with my videos, and I just now got this, so I hope you guys that knew about this are going, oh my god, finally. I hope you appreciate it. I appreciate it. I think it's amazing that I can do this, which is really awesome. I just don't know why it didn't dawn on me before that I could do this, but now I'm protecting this thing, and I'm protecting my actual application, and the only thing I've got really running is my NGinX Proxy Manager, and again, my external firewall protects that admin interface, that port 81, which is what I want. But I'm keeping everything inside my network where I have to use this. I cannot jump to it just through the IP address anymore. I don't have to worry about that happening. So if you're on an internal network, like at a workplace or a university or somewhere like that, and you're trying to run web applications for anything that you would normally do port mapping for, I've just shown you a really great way to do this. So let's just talk about it one more time, what the process is. One, you need to have a reverse proxy. It doesn't matter if you use NGinX Proxy Manager or Traffic or Caddy or whatever. As long as you know how to use that tool, that's step one. And you need to have it set up inside of your Docker network. And it needs to be on a Docker network. So two is create your Docker network. So we used a couple of really simple commands here. We did Docker network create, and then we called it a bridge network because it's just for inside of our Docker containers on this machine, and I want them to be able to be reached by the internet or reach out to the internet if they need to. And then we just gave it a name. So whatever name you want. If you want to call this My Cool House, you can do that. That would be the Docker network name that you're creating, basically. Then you want to attach your containers to it. So say Docker network connect, and you're going to just give it the network you want to connect it to. So in my case, it was OSIA, or it might be My Cool Network. And then the container name that you want to connect to it. So in our case, we want to definitely connect NGinX Proxy Manager, the app, and the DB. So that's what we did, because those two communicate with each other. They're two different containers, and they communicate with each other through this same kind of network. And then you want to add anything else. So we added Heimdall and Heimdall went onto it. Now I did it through Portainer, but this would have done the exact same thing. It would have connected it to my cool network, or in my case we connected it to OSIA Heimdall, right? So we got those connected. Once we did that, we were set for networking. We didn't have to use any port mappings on Heimdall. We just let it be the ports that it already says, hey, these are ports that I have that you're going to use, which is great. You need to know those things. But then we go in and we go into NGinX Proxy Manager and we set up a proxy host. So inside of the proxy host, we'll just go edit this one so you can see it. We give it a name. Now you need, routemehome.org is my domain. I own this. You need to own whatever domain you're trying to get through to, but you need to point that domain to your home IP address or your work IP address or wherever you're running this that you want to access it from. So in my case, I own routemehome.org, and I pointed heim.routemehome.org, and I pointed it to Heimdall. I used the container name, which was great. That's simple. If for some reason this network address set changes, the container name does not. It stays Heimdall. And then I know it runs on port 80 right here, and I've got it set up. Now I'm accessing it with not SSL. So let's go set up SSL. We're going to click on the SSL tab. We're going to say, you know what, request a new certificate for me for this. I'm going to say force me to go to SSL, and I do agree to the Let's Encrypt certificate terms of service. Now if you want to go set up HSTS and all those things, you can. This is not something I'm going to do right now. You can use a DNS challenge if you're willing to go set up some text records on your DNS records and things like that. So if you don't want to have it where Let's Encrypt can reach through your network to get to the certificates, you can do it through DNS challenge. It's not something I want to go into on this video, but it is possible. But we're just going to hit save, and we're going to see if Let's Encrypt can reach this thing and then issue a Let's Encrypt certificate for us to get to our dashboard through HTTPS. It looks like it worked because the little pop-up went away without any error messages. Now we click, and we see we get HTTPS with a valid CA certificate to get to our Heimdall dashboard. So that's really all there is to it, to getting your Docker stuff set up and actually a little bit more secure than we even were before. So now I've given you two sets of tools to do this. You can say, Docker, I only want you to let things through that I want to let through my external firewall. You can set that up on your home, and you should always have a firewall set up on your home network. You can set that up on a VPS like I did with DigitalOcean last week in that video. And if you haven't seen that video, you should go check it out. I'll put a link to it in the description so that you guys can see what we're doing. And I'll have show notes for this one since we did some terminal stuff this time. So there will be show notes on how I set this up and what steps I went through to set this up. You guys can just apply that to any Docker containers you want. But we've got firewalls. We've got things like Cloudflare to help protect your data and help set up kind of those in the internet firewalls, I guess is the best way to put it. It stops things from coming through. It helps keep things protected so that you don't have ports open and things exposed that you don't want. And then we have the way that we did today, where we create a special Docker network and we set up something like NGinX Proxy Manager and we expose the ports for that we need to through our firewall only. And then we use everything else that's built into Docker to kind of keep those app containers very secure as far as networking goes. I hope this video was useful to you guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, like, subscribe, tell your friends about it so they can come along the journey with us, and I'll talk to you next time.